Flow like a river, please come back, I ask you by our Creator. I have never been away from you ever. I miss your scent and kiss, O son of Haidar. And my name is the sweet name of your mother. You've given me this name, and you I do not blame. Your mother, she loved you, and my love is the same. You've given me this name, and you I do not blame. Your mother, she loved you, and my love is the same. You've given me this name, and you I do not blame. Your mother, she loved you, and my love is the same. Your words I want to hear. You leave me with my tears, and leave my heart broken, and leave my heart broken. You take all the children, you take all the women, so why did you leave me and leave my heart broken? You leave me alone here, you leave me with my tears, and leave my heart broken, and leave my heart broken. I stand and wait at my door for your return. You left me but took all the other children. With every passing day I feel my heart burn. I long to kiss you, your warmth is what I am. You are my rose, my flower and my vision. Without Hussein, to who am I left to turn? I'm surrounded by night, Father, you are my light. I live in a shadow without hearing or sight. I'm surrounded by night, Father, you are my light. I live in a shadow without hearing or sight. I long to hold you near. You leave me with my tears, and leave my heart broken, and leave my heart broken. He tells me, oh my rose, why are your eyes wet? I tell him your absence my heart can't accept. My Father, every night at your side I've slept. I've never met anyone like you I've met. Your hand in my hand always I would have kept. Every day I was apart from you I've wept. He tells me, oh young one, he tells me, oh young one, it is God's decision that you must be left here and live life an orphan. He tells me, oh loved one, he tells me, oh young one, it is God's decision that you must be left here and live life an orphan. I tell him I can't bear you leave me with my tears, and leave my heart broken, and leave my heart broken. You take all the children, you take all the women, so why did you leave me and leave my heart broken? You leave me alone, you leave me with my tears, and leave my heart broken, and leave my heart broken.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dearest viewers, أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم من مصابنا أبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام. Our condolences go to you, go to our awaited Saviour, may Allah hasten his reappearance, and to the parents of Abu Abdullah Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra upon these tragic days of Muharram. And we thank you for joining us again for our second night on Verses of Love, where we aim to mourn together, where we aim to bring together poetry, recitations, ziyarah, and lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from wherever you are in the world, to try and mourn, commemorate, but also use that emotion as a catalyst towards our journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And over these nights, we'll be joined by reciters, and as well we'll be looking at specific personalities as we go along. And you've just heard from the beautiful voice of our dear Mullah Ali Fadhil. Mullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sadiq.
A very beautiful and touching poem, I think, that can encapsulate all of the daughters of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, no doubt, and that somberness of a father leaving a daughter, but also the somberness of a daughter saying goodbye to her father.
Absolutely. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to the dear viewers. And of course, tonight is not just, usually on this night, I think within the Iraqi culture, they remember Fatima Aleela, who was the sick child of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who was left in Medina. Tonight is the night of the orphans. Tonight is a night to remember the orphans across the world in this day and age, and also remembering the orphans, the children of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, not just Aleela, but you have, for example, Ruqayya alayhi salam, you have Sukaina, but also you have, for example, Hamida, the daughter of Muslim, and so we'll retell their stories later on today. Just a quick word for the dear viewers that you can reach us, feedback, anything that you'd like to say to us on our social media platforms. However, what we do request the dear viewers is during these emotional nights, your emotions must run high. You must have feelings, opinions, thoughts, expressions, artistic expressions that you want maybe aired on live television. So please do reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag Verses of Love for any couplets, any small lines of poetry, and inshallah we will be able to deliver that and read them out loud for everyone to benefit. So please do send in your poetry. The theme, I guess, for the next couple of nights, and especially Verses of Love, is not just the masa'ib and not just the lamentations of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and his family, but also a particular focus on Ziyarat Ashura. And yesterday, quite intriguingly, we talked about Assalamu Alaik.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just Assalamu Alaik, and the fact that there are many wonders that can be gained just from that sentence alone. And so you're going to share, inshallah, some thoughts on
inshallah. And all credit to, as I will always mention, Shaykh Al-Fan, who has compiled this and has compiled it from different sharhs that are in Arabic and Farsi that he's now presented to us in English. So may Allah grant him the ability to continue in this service, inshallah. And yes, yesterday we started with Assalamu Alaik, which you would think shouldn't take too long. But such is the depth of this incredible ziyarah. And today we go on, not just to the second part of that, but we'll go on to a couple of lines later. But the second part of that first line, Assalamu alayk, Ya Abu Abdullah.
Wow. Okay.
And then it really starts to get to a different level. And I think, again, usually when we look at tafsir, regardless of ziyarah or of du'as, you'll usually find that a lot of it comes back to the linguistical angle. And I'm going to not spend too much time on that, but instead just kind of rush to the conclusion of those. And firstly, this Abu Abdullah, in Arabic, we know that you would call someone by their kunya, their title, typically by father of, and then the name of their eldest son or eldest child. So in this case, we may just think, okay, this is Aba Abdullah, and of course, Imam Hussein alayhi salam had a son, Abdullah al-Radhi. So maybe it's just simply alluding to the father of Abdullah al-Radhi, potentially. And that is one way of seeing it, fine. But also we find in the Arabic culture, in the Arab culture, that you would call someone Abu, father of a certain quality that they have. So for example, Abu Jawad, if they were someone who's known to be generous. Abu Turab, فعلي ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Mufassirin come forward and say, actually, Aba Abdullah, this complete subservient slave or servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a trait that Imam al-Hussein had. And therefore, we're actually calling him by his trait of being that complete submissive servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And actually we find in tafsir that the Prophet would address Imam al-Hussein in the early stages of his life, at birth and at those kind of early stages, as Aba Abdullah, which is almost a proof for us that even from such a young age, he had this status of such subservience to his Lord that he carried from the very beginning right and through the end. And I think again that changes the tone in which we start this ziyarah in absolute respect for a man who is completely immersed in this worship of Allah.
Is Aba Abdullah exclusive to Imam al-Hussein?
I don't think so. I think we have, for example, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam in our hadith very regularly referred in that way. So we see it commonly in the alayhi salam. So this, again, just changes slightly the perception that we start. That's the first one. Second one, so now we finished that first line, Assalamu alayka Aba Abdullah. Second line, Assalamu alayka Yabna Rasulillah. Question, why is it not the other way around? You could argue, maybe, from a layman's perspective, I would say, this is just my open thinking, that would it be more respectful to say that I would address Imam al-Hussein perhaps by being the son of his grandfather rather than directly addressing him? Could be an argument to say that. So why...
Oh, sorry, as in you meant, why not say Assalamu alayka Ibn Rasulillah first and then Assalamu alayka
exactly.
Ya Aba Abdullah? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is an interesting conversation. Like, why is it in a certain order? And I think in different ziyarah you'll find different approaches. But again, there's a reflection on this. And the first premise is this, which is that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, we know, had to be this conveyor of the message. An absolute truthful conveyor of the message that could be trusted. Again, that was completely immersed in this message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he came to live through. And in order to be this perfect conveyor, there are conditions. And in our salah, we actually read out these conditions because we talk about it for the Prophet. Because we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan. Firstly, we say, Abduhu, then wa Rasulah. First thing, you need to be a subservient, humble, complete, immersed servant of Allah. Then that is the criteria to become a messenger. And we use that for his grandfather, and similarly here, we use that for him to say, firstly, you are the subservient person, and therefore you're able to become this Rasul. And again, this is, I think, just a reminder for us that it's no joke, a personality that we begin to address. And I think maybe as we start to see it, rather than just seeing it as family titles, we see it as the status of what this man is, such that we drop ourselves in humility in front of him.
These aren't just titles, they are, I guess, God-given names, and they embody these names to the max, to the core, essentially.
Absolutely.
And they're not just given names just for the sake of giving names.
Absolutely.
There's actual meaning behind those names, which is fantastic to hear.
For sure. And just finally then, and this is, so after that, of course, we then say the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the son of Fatima al-Zahra, and I'm overlooking those ignorantly of myself, but just because of time. And we'll go to the next line where it says, Assalamu alayka ya Thar Allah wa ibn Thar. So now we're out of the family elements, and now we're into this part. And this is really profound, and we'll conclude on this, which Thar Allah we understand in the translation directly to be blood of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thar Allah, blood of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how? Right? Blood of Allah, wal-a'udhu billah, of course we don't say that Allah has physical blood. But equally in the Quran we see, for example, Bayt Allah being referred to, Naqat Allah being referred to, House of Allah, the Camel of Allah. So we know it's not a literal sense, but linguistically what happens here is that when we say Bayt Allah, we are giving reverence to the house that is being spoken of. It's a way to give reverence, i.e. the Kaaba. So similarly here we're saying this is Thar Allah.
Wow.
This is the blood, metaphorically speaking, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what does that mean? It means that this blood that was spilt was as a result of something that Allah was displeased with. And it was of such profound nature to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that if that is His blood that was spilt, or if that is blood that is of utmost importance to Allah that was spilt, equally, if Allah is the owner of it, He's the only one that can then ask for its revenge. And of course, in Dua Nutbah, we of course recite the very famous line, asking where the avenger of the blood of Karbala is going to be, or where he's coming from. Of course, that relates to our Hujjah. And when we draw this parallel, we now start to see that fine. If Imam Hussein is able to carry out the command of Allah, and therefore whatever is spilt from him, it's as if it's the blood of Allah being spilt. Similarly, at that point of when vengeance needs to be taken back, of course we have an imam who can carry out that task, because he too is fully subservient. He too is an Abdullah. And he's able to carry out this vengeance on behalf. أين طالب بدم المقتول بكربلاء from Dua Nutbah. So just 3 brief reflections on this beautiful ziyarah.
Ahsant, amazing. I actually look forward to the next ones.
Inshallah. Inshallah. But daughters of Abu Abdullah, the topic for tonight, and as we said, multiple, it's not just the daughters of Imam Hussein, it's the daughters of Muslim, and I think you profoundly said, it's also the orphans of even our current day shuhada as well, of course. And inshallah, with that, we'll start with some spoken word from our guest, Brother Muntadhir Jafar.
The crescent raised its head. The crescent raised its head, regretting that it shows, whilst the sorrowful wind with remorse blows. The birds of the sky cry tears that rain down. Flying to Karbala, their grief adorned as their crown. My Imam cries blood for that inexplicable pain, and the blood he cries itself cries for Hussein. For the Furat today flows not with the river's water, rather with the tears of Zainab and Hussein's daughter. The river cries and itself remains thirsty. The river cries and itself remains thirsty. It wishes it were not to be flowing, firstly, and secondly, that it flowed near the tent of Abbas. The quencher of thirst should never have to pass the river, and yet be unable to bring back the water, causing nothing but tears from Hussein's beloved daughter.
Allah.
O people of the heavens and earth, weep, for a whole year has passed by. Let these tears flow and over the throat of Ali al-Asghar cry. The ink in this servant's pen runs dry. Shamed it is to write. To recount the event it becomes shy. And all I can think about is why. Why has Zahra's heart torn into pieces? Why is it that the sun's fire freezes? Why is it that blood rains from the sky? The question roaming my head, why? While Shimr sits on his holy chest, while Shimr sits on his holy chest, not realizing that this is of God's creation, his best. Hussein, Hussein, for your grief Jibreel cries out. For what is this world without Hussein? What is this world without Hussein?
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Ahsant. What is this world without Hussein? What is this world without your father? Again, it's tough for us to even appreciate the slight challenge that they must have faced at that moment of goodbye.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a specific line of poetry that the poet of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam would say. He actually came up to Imam al-Rida and said, look, I have a poem about your grandfather, Imam al-Hussein. Do you mind if I recite it to you? And so he said, yes, but give me a second, because Sorry. Yes, give me a second. I'd like to arrange the majlis. And this is an imam creating a majlis for another imam, so it's his grandfather. So creating the majlis, he told Da'bil, please go ahead and recite. And so he recites these famous lines, and you've probably heard it because in the Arabic world, the scholars, the lecturers, the reciters will all recite these lines, and it starts off with أفاطم لو خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي إذا للطمت الخد فاطم عنده وأجريت دمع العين في الوجنات. Translated briefly, O Fatima, if you were present on the day of Ashura to see what happened to your son Hussein in Karbala, then how would you have reacted? And so Da'bil then says, you would have beaten your cheek from the pain of seeing your son being slaughtered in front of your eyes. Now, Da'bil here says, there was another line that I mentioned, which Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, at this point of his grief, would pick up his amama and throw it to the floor. And that's when he says, why did he do that? Da'bil says, the poet, because I reminded him of his aunt Zainab. And the words are, Banatu Ziyadin, amazing, Banatu Ziyadin fil qusuri mukhaddarat, wa banatu Rasulillah sabaya fil falawati. The women and children of Ziyad, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, are well cared for. Yet the women and children, specifically the children of Rasulullah, are dragged between deserts and from one place to another. And so that's, I guess, the importance that are placed not on just, as I mentioned, Aleela, but also, for example, Ruqayya and Sham, as well as Hamida in terms of
there's that line where the daughter of Imam Hussein in the prison in Sham, which I think just shows the innocence of it, where along the lines of where she looks up to the birds and says, look at the birds flying home, will I ever get to return home? Soon after she passes away. And I think that innocence is something that, you know, many of these poets capture, you know, sometimes in the basic wording that maybe they'll use when speaking on behalf of them using poetic license. And I think with that, again, it's become a reality, unfortunately, for us, especially when we go to ziyarah and we see, and you know, maybe we'll carry out some charity work and you see the orphans there and you see the innocence of these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old girls who are fatherless because they've given their life to defend the land. And that's I don't know, for us we're privileged. We're more than privileged.
I think when you mentioned innocence, it's particularly apparent in the story of Karbala and the tragedy of Ashura, because if you allow me to go into the lamentations of specifically Fatima al-Aleela, Imam Hussein alayhi salam had a daughter by the name of Fatima. Now, the daughter of Fatima, and specifically focusing on the innocence of Fatima, before Imam al-Hussein left the camp or left Medina, Fatima al-Aleela, she could sense something was going on. She could sense, you know, her father was pacing up and down, her uncle Abul Fadl Abbas was preparing something, her cousins, her uncles, her brothers, something was going on, but no one seemed to inform her of what's going on. Maybe no one wanted to have that difficult conversation with Aleela, Fatima al-Aleela. And so, being ill, being frail, being sick, she fell asleep. When she fell asleep, she woke up. When she woke up, she asked Salama and she asked al-Banin, where is my father? And the response was Fatima, Imam al-Hussein came to you. When he came to you, he saw you resting, he didn't want to wake you up. And so they have just left. And that's where Fatima al-Aleela, in her frail state, she ran after the caravan of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, running after the caravan, crying, oh father, please come back. And this is where Imam al-Hussein would come back to Fatima al-Aleela. Now this is the conversation on innocence that we're talking about. The conversation was, Fatima, no, please go back, there's something important that I have to do. No, he comes, he hugs her, he embraces her, and he tells her, Fatima, you know, I can't take you on this journey. Something might happen to you on this journey. You know, you're ill, you're sick. I don't want to risk your life. But Fatima al-Aleela turns and says, why do you have to leave? At least leave something with me, something I can remember you by. And the question that Aleela, Fatima al-Aleela asks Imam al-Hussein is what line that really breaks his heart. She says, Imam al-Hussein, oh father, will you be coming back? Will I see you again? And this is where Imam Hussein alayhi salam, with a broken heart, turns towards Fatima al-Aleela. He says, we will reunite again in Jannah, oh my dear daughter Fatima. She returns to the house. Days, hours became days, days became weeks, until she heard the cry. She heard the cry that came towards her, saying, قتل الحسين في كربلاء. Imam al-Hussein has been killed in Karbala. I say, oh Hussein, that you return to your daughter. When she cried out for you, you have another daughter in Sham. That when she cried out for you in the deepest depths of the night, instead of being presented with you, Abu Abdullah, she was presented with a tray and a head. She was left hugging this head, crying and crying, saying, oh my father, I wish that you can hug my head, not me hugging your head. As she cried and wailed, she became silent. When she became silent, Imam al-Sajjad then turned to his auntie Zainab and says, Amma Zainab, remove Ruqayya from the head of Abu Abdullah. Why, O Imam? Because she has now rejoined with her father Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And that's when Sayyida Zainab, when she returns to Karbala, there are many things that she said to Imam al-Hussein. One of the things she said was, the promise that I made to you, I'm sorry, I apologize. What do you apologize for, oh Zainab? I apologize because I took care of everyone. You asked me to look after the women and children. I took care of every single one but one. And I'm really sorry that I had to leave Ruqayya in Sham. And she was crying and wailing, Aba, Aba, man alladhi aytamani ala sughri sinni, man alladhi khaddaba shaybak, man alladhi hazza waridak. She screamed, Father, who is it? Who is it that made your beard drenched with blood? Who is it that made me an orphan of Abu Abdullah?
I am a daughter. I am a daughter who knows nothing but pain. I am a daughter who knows nothing but pain, separated from my love, my father Hussein. Father, why do you leave? Does God call your name? Father, why do you leave? Does God call your name? Your separation is my pain. Am I really to blame? I sit still till the skies turn red with blood. I sit still till the skies turn red with blood. With tears and anguish, my life suddenly floods. The moon turns black. Has Abbas died?
Allah.
The moon turns black. Has Abbas died? Or has the moon, out of grief from the sunshine? How can the moon shed light upon the land when Abu Fadhil's arms lay on this hot sand? The sun continues to burn with the fire of the tents. The sun continues to burn with the tents fire. With it my heart burns with this desire. What is this word I keep hearing? What is this word I keep hearing? Orphan, they say. Are they not God-fearing? Isn't an orphan orphaned when their father has died? Isn't an orphan orphan when their father has died? Hussein lives in every heart. You have nowhere to hide. Let me see my father again. Don't let this be farewell.
Let my eyes meet his. Let us smile together again. So I say, O daughter of Hussein, I feel this pain. Why is it from you, my master, I'm apart? We all want to be in Karbala. Why is it, my master, that from you I'm apart? Can you not see the pain I carry in this feeble heart? My master, have mercy and call me to your dome. How much longer can a beloved be away from his home? Hussein, your shrine is all I wish to see. Let me come there, and then even death can take me. Once my eyes with the sight of Karbala is filled, every dream and every wish of mine will be fulfilled. Hussein! Hussein, don't let these hairs on my head turn white. Don't let me suffer. Ease my plight. My eyes without your light will turn blind, just like Yaqub when after Yusuf he was left behind. Oh my Yusuf, restore this Yaqub's sight. Oh my Yusuf, restore this Yaqub's sight. Oh Aleela, let Majnoon see your light. Oh Aleela, let Majnoon see your light.
We thank our dear brother Muntadhir, thank you so much for that. And I think when you hear words like that and when you recount the tragedy like we just heard, it brings no surprise when you read narrations like this from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where he says, verily when Abu Abdullah Hussein ibn Ali died, the 7 heavens, the 7 earths, everything within them, everything between them, everyone which circulates around them, paradise, hell, and everything that our Lord has created from among that which can be seen and that which cannot be seen, all cried over him.
SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah.
And you're thinking these are words of an Imam alayhim salam, that they all of course echo. Such is the tragedy, such is the masa'ib of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein.
Absolutely. I think in this part, in terms of the poetry that you chose for today, can you give us just a brief insight into maybe the thought process behind it? Maybe what was the inspiration behind the poem that you chose for today?
I think one of the things. I think one of the things that to me is straight away pertinent, and we mentioned it about the story of Karbala, is the innocence. I think to think that there were children, and the story that comes to mind is Abdullah Radi' Ali al-Asghar as well. To think that level of innocence was brutally taken away, their lives were just lost. I think that really hits hard. And I think there's also something really poetic about the pain of separation, where you don't know what's going to happen to somebody. When somebody you love is taken from you, and they're not, you know that they've just left you, they're not passed on to the next world yet, but you also don't know whether they're going to come back to you. And I think that pain is a special kind of pain. The second part of that poem was, we were supposed to be in Iraq for the 10 days of Muharram.
Oh, were you?
Today I would have been in Najaf.
MashaAllah.
I would have been arriving to Najaf today. And I can't explain
it's difficult.
The pain.
But I think that in itself is an exact example of when you thought the opportunity was there to go and return, and equally like a daughter would expect their father to return. You don't know when you haven't got it. You really just don't know, and I think that's profound.
You don't know. But beyond that, I think God has better plans first and foremost, and secondly, we are blessed, though we're not able to visit the shrines as is our dream, but to have this opportunity to serve in whatever capacity, it's a blessing in itself.
Absolutely.
I think the amazing thing about Ashura and Imam Hussein's message from both an intellectual perspective, where the lessons you can learn to better yourself and reform from the inside, is also the emotional aspect of it. And there are many scholars who've maintained that it's not just the message of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, it's the tears that carried the message as well. And that's why I think, regardless of a pandemic, political situation, whatever it may be, Imam Hussein's commemoration will still be at its height during the 10 days of Muharram.
And if anything, it strengthens it. This movement has been there for centuries. It's going to be there for centuries. حرارة لم تبرد أبدا.
Exactly.
The fire in your heart is never extinguished. And I think whichever obstacles we face, the fact that the Husseini movement still lives on through whatever means, be it Zoom, be it this, be it whatever, the fact that it moves on is truly inspiring.
With
it's
no
poetic in
less,
itself.
almost fervour as well. It's got
Exactly.
that same passion, that same effort.
It's like we're trying to prove a point.
Yeah.
Like regardless of this, we're still gonna, not just commemorate, but we're gonna go above and beyond within our means just to make sure that the message is out there.
100%.
100%.
I just want to extend on this kind of notion of innocence, and I think maybe you guys will know better than I. There's that recitation about Abdullah al-Rabi', Ma dhanbu tifli, what is the crime or the guilt of this baby? And I think just that, and I remember that specific, like to me, I watched it on YouTube many years ago, and I think it was the first time I saw one of those visual depictions of Ashura as well, and Hurmal al-La'in preparing the arrow, and just that echoing in the background. You really just die, and it makes you shake almost, that a father has to hold their child knowing almost what's coming. But there's an English poem which talks about this, the daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, basically saying that she's lonely. So the words are, Ruqayya's loneliness and silence fills the darkness. Who does she call? Abbas no more, therefore she calls Haydar in Najaf. And one part of it where it says, I'm just young, but these grown men, my cheeks they beat. My earrings, they tug so hard, I start to bleed. If my uncle was stood here, this wouldn't be. And then it says, oh please come back, oh please come back. Why? They whip my back, they whip my back, she calls Haydar. And I think this ongoing sentiment that they're alone after that 10th day, a handful of men continue with the caravan of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and they're just calling for help from anyone and everyone, but specifically Amir al-Mu'mineen.
There is another story actually of, we mentioned Hamida quite briefly. I think Hamida, Imam al-Hussein, as we know, left Mecca, and on his way to Kufa, he reached a certain area where he received the news of Muslim being martyred, and so he called upon Hamida. He said, Hamida, please come to me. Who was watching was actually Ruqayya from afar. Ruqayya was watching this from afar, so she could see, Imam al-Hussein sitting next to Hamida, wiping her head, hugging her, wiping her back, making sure she's okay, she's comforted, and she's watching, she's thinking, I know what this is. I know what this is about. I know that when a person or a child becomes an orphan, the next kind of guardian would perform these acts because just to comfort and soothe her. And then her mind then races and thinks, well, if Imam Hussein alayhi salam is doing this to Hamida, what will happen if Imam Hussein's not around? And then the conversation, her feelings is, if I have to look left, right and centre for my father, and if I find my father who's martyred and butchered on the ground of Karbala, who is going to be able to wipe my head?
To my aid.
Who's going to be hugging me?
It pains the heart when you think of the treatment that Ruqayya bint al-Hussein received after, when she was orphaned.
It's hard to think, to be honest with you. It's really, really hard to grasp the idea of, irrespective of their background, who they are associated to, be it, for example, a revenge mission against Imam Ali and Imam al-Hussein. But women and children, they have no flaw in the situation whatsoever. Absolutely. They have no dhanb, the mind.
And it's a very, very, you're right, it's a very abstract concept to think about how a child of 4 years.
Yeah.
And there was I think 2-3 years ago, there was an artistic piece, a drawing, that was depicting the pain of Sayyidah Ruqayya salamullahi alayha. And it shook me to my core to see an illustration of a child of that age with that much fear in their eyes. And it's just a painting.
It's, I think, as we just said, the hand of Imam Hussein alayhi salam would arrive upon the head of Hamida to try and comfort her as a newly orphan. And unfortunately, the hand that would receive the head of Ruqayya salamullah alayha is the one who then butchered her father just hours before. And I think the maturity of Sayyidah Ruqayya salamullah alayha is astounding in this whole context, in this whole situation. And it's something that we reflect upon, it's something that we revere, not just her, but all of the daughters of Abu Abdullah and all the children that were involved in the event of Ashura and then on their journey towards Kufa and Sham. My dear brothers and sisters, we will conclude today with recitations of lamentation. So I ask you to join, and I want you to think about the following, and that is this journey of Abu Abdullah, this university that we have, that he has provided us with to learn from. Sometimes if our hearts are a little bit hard and struggling for us to break through, it's moments like these where if we just try and reflect, if we try and dim that light in your home, if you try and wear a black piece of cloth and just reflect and let the following words take you forward, inshallah.
Although this poem is related to Fatima al-Aleela, very much so it could be associated with every orphan yearning their father, being a daughter or a son yearning for their father. And the words are said, "Will I picture you, O father, in my head, in my head? I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. Hear the words of an orphan, you leave behind your children. I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. My eyes gaze upon your face, and your features they retrace. And if I forgot your beauty, what memories would I embrace? Father, know in your absence, no hand shall soothe my grievance, no hand to wipe the tears I shed, or soothe me with its presence. If I must live an orphan, I'll draw my father often, with my own tears of grief as ink, and my wails as my pen, and my wails as my pen. When in sadness I will draw you, oh Father, and remember that I was once your daughter, your daughter. My wound shall remain open. You leave behind your children. I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. I asked you before you left, Father, do orphans forget what their father looks like? Tell me, for this alone I have wept. Before you left, oh Father, did you not once but ponder our fatherless children kept safe by the world that they wander? I'm scared if they struck your head and Hussein rivers you bled, what will they do to his children? Father, my future I dread. I know that if hurt I'll cry out your sweet name, and recall the times I was hurt, and you came to me running. You'd come, you leave behind your children. I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. I hold you and you hold me by the warmth of your body. My heart flutters in its comfort, nothing but beauty I see. Do you know what your warmth brings? I feel an angel's wings protecting me like a mountain. Lullabies to me it sings. Torn from me is this fortress, and it leaves me in distress. And if a daughter is distressed, she awaits her father's kiss. All I expect from your father, all I expect from you, Father, is a cuddle, a cuddle. And if you want your daughter, you can cradle, can cradle. My comfort became a dream. You leave behind your children. I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. Will I picture you, oh Father, in my head, in my head? I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. Hear the words of an orphan. You leave behind your children. I've already drawn you in the tears I shed, tears I shed. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبي الفضل العباس واخته زينب جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.